Hi guys, Mike here from the Comic Checklist. In this one, we'll do a summary for the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 2, written by Stan Lee and drawn by John Romita. Volume 2. The Omnibus collects the Amazing Spider-Man 39 through 67, the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 3, 4, and 5, and the Spectacular Spider-Man 1 and 2, that's the 1968 run. Fair warning, spoilers ahead. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and if you are ready, let's dive into the story. We start with issue 39, which features the Goblin. Peter and Harry become friends, which makes Gwen happy, and the Goblin finds out Spidey's identity and manages to kidnap him. He also reveals his identity, Norman Osborn. In issue 40, Betty decides to come back to New York. The Goblin fights Spidey, but gets knocked into some chemical vials and faints. When he wakes up, he doesn't remember that he is the Green Goblin or Spidey's secret identity. In issue 41, Peter buys a motorcycle and John Jameson visits his father. John had space spores attached to him from his spacewalk, and because of that, Rhino wants to capture him. But Spidey saves him. Also, Peter shares a moment with Gwen. In issue 42, Spider-Man apparently robs a bank, and because of that, John Jameson, who has gotten bigger and stronger from the space spores, attacks him. The bag that Spidey has stolen from the bank was in fact a bomb. In the second fight with John, our hero destroys the spores using a generator and reverts John back to normal. Also, we meet for the first time Mary Jane. In issue 43, Betty and Ned announce their engagement, while Peter is mesmerized by Mary Jane. Rhino is back and tries again to capture John Jameson, but is stopped by Spidey. On his way home, Peter finds out that Flash has been drafted for the army. In Annual 3, the Avengers decide to recruit Spider-Man. As a test, they ask him to go after the Hulk, but our hero leaves the Green Monster alone when he finds out he is only a tortured man. Spidey tells the Avengers that he didn't find Hulk and leaves, not knowing that they wanted to help the Hulk as well. In issue 44, Dr. Connors transforms into the Lizard. MJ meets everybody and makes Gwen jealous when she leaves with Peter. Spider-Man gets his arm sprained while fighting the Lizard, who then escapes. In issue 45, Spidey manages to defeat the Lizard and turn him back into Kurt Connors using a cold environment, and later, as he bumps into Harry and MJ, starts to believe MJ is shallow for being careless all the time. Issue 46 features the Shocker, which Spidey defeats. Peter's aunt is moving in with Mrs. Watson, while Pete is moving in with Harry. Issue 47 features Flash's going away party. He is leaving for the army. At the party, Spidey has to fight Kraven the Hunter, who flees the scene after the fight, believing himself victorious. In issue 48, Blackie Drogo tricks Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, into telling him the location of his wings. He leaves Adrian on his deathbed and becomes the new Vulture. Spider-Man gets sick, but nevertheless tackles the new Vulture, but ends up defeated. Issue 49 brings back Kraven, who upon hearing that Spider-Man was defeated by the Vulture, gets angry that it wasn't him that defeated the Wallcrawler and goes after the Vulture. Spidey, feeling better, joins the fight and eventually manages to defeat them both. In issue 50, Peter is blaming Spider-Man for all of his problems and decides to throw his suit away, which later is delivered by a kid to JJ. Kingpin, hearing the news about Spider-Man, starts his plan to take over the city. Peter can't stay too much away from the action and saves a Watchman in danger. Foswell gets captured by the Kingpin while trying to take his place, and Spidey pays JJ a visit to let him know he is back. In issue 51, Kingpin is starting his operations. Robertson makes his first appearance and JJ is kidnapped by the Kingpin's henchmen. Spidey reaches the crime boss's hideout but gets defeated. In issue 52, Kingpin decides to kill Spider-Man and JJ in a room that is slowly filling with water, but our hero manages to escape. Spidey then fights the Kingpin, who runs away, and Foswell dies protecting JJ. Annual 4 features Spidey and the Torch against Mysterio and the Wizard and their mechanical gorilla. In issue 53, Peter invites Gwen to a science exhibition where Dr. Octopus tries to steal the nullifier. Spidey stops him, but the villain escapes. In issue 54, Dr. Octopus rents a room from Aunt May. Peter is shocked when he finds out, changes into Spider-Man and tackles the Doctor. Eventually, Doc Ock escapes while Aunt May faints, making Peter vow he will stop the villain forever. In issue 55, Dr. Octopus steals the nullifier and uses it on Spider-Man, making our hero lose his memories. The villain then convinces Spidey that they are partners. In issue 56, everybody is worried about Peter and we meet Captain Stacy, Gwen's dad. Spidey, believing he is Dr. Octopus's partner, retrieves the isotope 16 but leaves the map that can be traced back to the Doctor's hideout. Finding the map, John Jameson and the army make their way to the hideout. Spidey realizes that he can't be the Doctor's partner, so he lets the villain get captured. However, he still can't remember anything. Issue 57 features Kazar, who is convinced by JJ to go after Spider-Man. They fight and Zabu, Kazar's tiger, knocks Spidey into a pond. In issue 58, our hero gets his memory back after almost dying in the pond. He then battles another spider-killing robot created by Smite and manages to defeat it. In issue 59, Gwen is very happy to see Peter after he had been missing because of his amnesia and kisses him. Peter, Gwen and Harry go to see MJ at her new job. The club is actually run by a crime boss and his henchman, the Brainwasher, manages to lure Captain Stacy in order to brainwash him. Spidey shows, but as he does, he is grabbed by the Kingpin. In issue 60, Spidey is defeated by the Kingpin and Captain Stacy is brainwashed. Later, the Captain attacks Peter, who then defends himself, but Gwen believes otherwise. Spider-Man gets some pictures that incriminate Captain Stacy and gives them to JJ for publishing. Gwen is shocked by the story and by the fact that the pictures were taken by Peter. In issue 61, Norman Osborn is starting to remember his old identity, the Green Goblin, while Captain Stacy, who can tie Kingpin to the latest crimes, is captured along his daughter by the Kingpin's men. Spidey saves them, Kingpin escapes, and the Captain gets exonerated. Issue 62 features Medusa the Inhuman, who has come into the city to see if the humans still fear her kind. She fights Spidey twice and leaves afterwards. In issue 63, we find out that Adrian Toomes is alive. Gwen doesn't want to talk to Peter without an explanation regarding the events with her father, which Pete can't provide without revealing his secret identity. Adrian breaks Blackie Drogo out of prison and fights him to prove he is the real Vulture. He defeats Blackie and he is preparing to fight Spidey next. In issue 64, Captain Stacy tells Gwen what really happened and that Peter is not to blame, and Spider-Man manages to defeat the Vulture, but he passes out in the middle of the street. In issue 65, Captain Stacy makes sure Spider-Man is not unmasked. Our hero is brought to the prison infirmary, where the prisoners capture Captain Stacy. Spidey defeats them and rescues the Captain. Issue 66 features Mysterio, who wants revenge on Spider-Man. Peter patches things up with Gwen, and Norman Osborn fully remembers his identity as the Green Goblin, but he doesn't remember Spider-Man's. Spidey fights Mysterio, and apparently gets shrunk down. In issue 67, Spidey is fighting the giant Mysterio, and we meet Robertson's son, Randy. Our hero manages to defeat the giant Mysterio, who was in fact a robot controlled by the actual Mysterio, and leaves the villain for the cops. In Annual 5, we finally have a story about Peter's parents, whom apparently were traitors. Spidey finds his father ID in Red Skull's sanctum, but later learns that his father has in fact betrayed Red Skull and not his country. He fights Red Skull, who runs away, and notices the real credentials of his father's ID, an American counterspy. The Spectacular Spider-Man 1 is mapped between issues 63 and 64 and features a black and white story about a new mayoral candidate, Richard Raleigh, who uses a man-monster to make people believe the underworld is against him, gaining this way votes. However, Spidey lures the monster to Richard's house and the monster, overloaded, ends up killing his master. The story is readapted in the Amazing Spider-Man 116 through 118. The Spectacular Spider-Man 2, mapped between issue 67 and Annual 5, features the Green Goblin. He gets all his memories back and fights Spider-Man, who uses one of Goblin's smoke grenade on the villain, resulting in Osborn losing his memories again. The story can be considered canon or not, as it doesn't change the continuity of Green Goblin in either way. And that's it guys, the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 2. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and until next time, cheers!